9th meeting of the Board of Education, and we are meeting at the Fordyce Building. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Here. Mrs. Sudar.
Here.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Here.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt the minutes for November 4th, 18th, and 25th?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second. Second. By Mrs. DeAngelis. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. At this time, do we have a legislative liaison report, Mr. Smith?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, members of the public. I wanted to share two different quick facts to, again, kind of further point out some of our frustrations with our friends in Columbus. One is from an Akron Beacon Journal article yesterday, in yesterday's paper. The headline of the article is, as school districts attempt to implement mandated teacher evaluations, comma, legislature toys with changes. And I just want to read two sentences from this just to share a little bit of the frustration. First lead sentence in the article, after 4 years of preparing for a massive overhaul of how Ohio teachers are evaluated, paid, and fired, the state legislature is in the process of making another change. 2 paragraphs later, since its first passage by the legislature in 2009, lawmakers have made changes in 5 different bills, not counting the latest one. So again, as the Euclid City School District works to move to a new evaluation system, moving from how the district was evaluated to a report card system, we're also doing an evaluation of teachers, changing to the Common Core, and evaluating our principals at the same time. And now the legislature is again perhaps implementing its 6th change to that. So that's one little thing I wanted to share. And then I wanted to share something about ECOT, the electronic classroom of tomorrow. If you've watched any TV recently, you may well have seen a TV ad that seems to indicate that every public school student gets bullied, and the only safe thing that any reasonable parent will do is pull their child out of the public schools to a nice, safe computer where they will be taught by ECOT, which is an acronym for the Electronic Classroom of Tomorrow. It is Ohio's largest charter school. And whereas the public schools in the state of Ohio are receiving $515 million less since Governor Kasich came into office, ECOT is actually getting more money. Last year they got $88 million. This year they will get $92 million. And you do not get nearly anything for that investment. The graduation rate, which is again one of these new factors that we're being evaluated on, and the graduation rate has been recalculated, whereas just 3 years ago or so, Euclid City Schools were held as a model district in terms of its graduation of students from a high poverty area. Our graduation rate, like many of the other urban districts, is now a point of contention. Well, the city of Cleveland's graduation rate is 63.3%. ECOT's 5-year graduation rate is 37.8%. Yet, public schools are getting $515 million less, but ECOT is getting $4 million more as compared to last year. So those are the two factoids that I wanted to share. Again, just in an effort to continue to inform the public of the challenges that we're getting out of Columbus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. There's always something new coming out of Columbus. Necessarily better. Mrs. DeAngelis, do you have a report for us?
Just a real small, short report here. I just want to remind everybody that winter break does start in 2 weeks, December 23rd, and we don't come back to school till January 6th, and by then, all the snow will be done, we'll be done for the year. So, get used to it, have fun on Christmas with the snow. Also, this week at Euclid High School, on Wednesday night is the choral concert. It's always great, and the orchestra also performs at the same time. It's a very nice show, get you in the spirit of the holidays, come out and see it. And then on Thursday night is a basketball game between the staff of Forest Park and Euclid High School. It starts at 5:30, and the admission is $3 for students and $5 for adults. And then next week, on the 17th, is the concerts for the middle schools. They're also being held at the high school at 7 o'clock. So take the opportunity now to come and see the kids perform. Their shows are great, both of them.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bell, our superintendent.
Thanks, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to walk over to the podium over there and recognize a few people.
You go first.
Right. Good evening. We have the opportunity to recognize some very innovative teachers this evening. So what I want to do is read the resolution, and then what I want to do is call you all up. We have a certificate for you right here that will be handed out by our board president, along with the monetary support that we're going to be giving to the buildings. But I just want to read a little background regarding this resolution. Whereas the Euclid Board of Education wishes to support the initiative of teachers who design, create instructional approaches to teaching children, and whereas the Euclid Schools Foundation has established a procedure for awarding individual teacher grants of approximately $500 each, and whereas teachers may apply for these monetary awards for materials including books, computers, software, art supplies, and the like, and they need to complete innovative instructional strategies that support student learning, and whereas projects were judged on their creativity, potential for value added to student learning, and alignment with the appropriate state standards, benchmarks, and indicators, now therefore be resolved that the Euclid Board of Education congratulate the following teachers for receiving teacher mini-grants from the Euclid City Schools Foundation. And these teachers have developed these lessons and these strategies to help our students, and so we're very appreciative of that. So I'm going to call you up, and we'd like to give you your gift along with a certificate, and appreciate the innovativeness in your thought process.
Wait, we got to vote.
And
Otherwise we don't get it.
Yes, we do.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. Lysy. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Madam President, for slowing me down. I'm so excited about these grants. The first individual I'd like to recognize is Colleen Smith, and her area was level literacy assessment for student growth, and she's not here this evening, but an opportunity for us to deal with reading. Secondly is Genevieve Kinley, literary links. Genevieve, come on up. Let's give her a round of applause. Yeah, we stay right there. Next is Julia Doss and Jessica Stuffman, and this is for Leap Reader Reading Writing System, and they're not with us this evening. Next is Tracy Davis for an introduction to biomedical engineering. Carrie Fullcamp, building a love for reading while teaching the Common Core. That's a mouthful. The next teacher is Kathy Rich for Common Core text exemplars. Next, Michelle Pettit, Lisa Langford, and Jan Yulee for interactive notebook. And last but not least is Deborah Rutter for Teen Parent Literacy Project. Again, I just want to say, and then I'll give the board president an opportunity to speak also, I just want to say how happy I am that you are thinking outside the box. Appreciate what you do for our students, appreciate what you do in the classroom, and I know that you're going to use these grants to help to move our students forward, so we definitely appreciate that, and really be interested in your feedback once you get through and how we might be able to multiply this throughout the district. So thanks for all you do.
First of all, congratulations, and thank you for your hard work. I know that it takes a lot of extra time. And second of all, I was wondering if you could each kind of give us just a brief idea of what your grant is for. Are you prepared for me to ask that?
Yeah. So I decided, I'm actually just right now, a 5-day school improvement tutor. And I noticed that our materials to send home with the kindergartners were lacking. So I decided to see if there were any materials available that we could send home with them on a nightly basis that would have some sort of information to help the parents interact with their kids while they were reading with them. And it was just this great, they're like 36 books with fantastic activities, because I believe that parents, everybody wants to help their kid, but they might not necessarily know as they are becoming readers exactly what to do. So,
Very good.
thank you.
Very good.
My grant was pairing fiction with nonfiction. It was capitalizing on nonfiction that the kids love and then pulling in, the fiction that they love and pulling in nonfiction to pair with it so they can learn about topics as they go. And mainly a lot of it was Henry Munch and then pulling in a lot of science.
My grant was written for Common Core text exemplars. The Common Core demands a little bit more of our students than in the past what we've been teaching. So the books that they're expected to read are a little bit of a more higher level, more of the classics, and like Genevieve said, some of that is lacking in our buildings. So my grant is to buy sets of books for guided reading groups and classroom sets of books for our students to have an opportunity to get their hands on that type of literature.
My teen parent literacy project. I'm the new grads teacher at Euclid High School, and the grads program has worked hand in hand with Daily Dose of Reading to help improve literacy among the infants and toddlers in Euclid. And this grant is going to provide books on a monthly basis to the teen parents, and they're going to Daily Dose of Reading comes in and shows them different ways to read, interact, sing, play with your child, all based on the stories that we do. And so it will build their libraries, and they will have more exposure to reading. As this project has gone on in different forms over the years, the teen moms have reported, and teen dads have reported reading to their children more than they had before the program started.
Very good.
We know that that's so important, and it's really nice that you're all tying in reading in some form, because we know that that's such an important skill. So we appreciate everything you've done. Let's give them another round of applause. And we also want to thank the Euclid Foundation for providing the money for these mini grants. I know, I forgot number 7. I did forget, sorry, number 7. Are there any visitor comments relative to the agenda? Seeing none, then we'll move on to reports and recommendations of the treasurer, Mr. Bassett.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 9 is a resolution to approve financial data as submitted to the board, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion? Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second. Second. Second by Mrs. DeAngelis. Are there any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 10 is a resolution to establish funds and amend appropriations as submitted. I recommend approval.
Is there a motion? So moved. Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
And Mrs. DeAngelis. Do you want to explain the 2 new funds?
Yes. The miscellaneous grant fund represents the grant that Mr. Yule received and is actually in the later agenda item for technology, use of technology in the food service program. And the agency fund, the Ohio High School Athletic Association has requested school districts who will hold tournaments to start handling the funds and recording the money and running those monies through our books. Previous to that, it was kind of outside the realm of our books, and this brings structure to the tournament. So we need to set this fund up. It's basically just accounting for money coming in and leaving. It's no cost to the district, and it will start with the basketball playoffs this year.
That doesn't affect when we say per student funding or anything like
No,
that? That
no,
is
it doesn't.
totally kept separate?
This is an agency fund, and those dollars are kept out of that.
Good. Are there any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Blasey.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 11 is a resolution to secure funds from taxes. I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lysy, second
Second.
by Mr. Smith. Are there any questions or comments?
If I may, this is an annual routine resolution that for some reason they're requesting the board to adopt so we can get the tax revenues.
Basically, what it is we have to say, yes, we want all the money that the voters have voted for us, and we have to ask the county to do that. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Item 12 is a resolution to approve healthcare rates for 2014, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second
Second.
by Mrs. Lysy. Are there any questions or comments? Did you
If I
like?
may, yes, thank you. Just received our healthcare renewals, and these are the recommended funding rates based on the fully insured equivalent rate. Real quickly, the Kaiser rates have not changed. The Medical Mutual healthcare rates did increase significantly at about 16.9%. The dental rates through Dental increased 3%, and the prescription drugs also through Medical Mutual increased 2.1%, and the rates for the vision insurance saw no change. Putting it all together, there's an average increase in our health care costs of 11.15%.
Was that budgeted for in your five-year forecast and so forth?
Yes, we built in for this year a 15% increase, so we did come in a little bit under that.
Okay. Keep our fingers crossed for
Yeah.
next year. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And lastly, there's a resolution to accept a generous donation from Catherine Pasquale, and I recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Pasquale is making the donation in memory of her husband, Ben Pasquale, who used to work for us at the high school as a unit principal, and it will be specified to be used for the high school mediation program. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll turn to the reports and recommendations of the superintendent, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to handle personnel. Ms. Maroney has been on vacation, so we told her to stay home this evening. First of all, item 14 is to consider certified staff for 2013-14 and asking for approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 15 is another routine consideration for retirement, accept resignations and approve appointments, and also the student AV workers and leaves of absence, and we're asking for approval.
And this is for the classified staff.
For classified staff, yes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. Lysy. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 16 is not quite so routine. To consider I am rescinding my request to retire and be consideration for rehire and asking for consideration for approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis. Are there any questions or comments? There is a change in the state law which has moved the date that decisions about this need to be made. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 17 is approval for grant payments, and those are payments for Saturday Academy Aid, and we're asking for approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 18 is to consider approved negotiated agreements, memorandums of understanding for 2013 through 2016 of our non-bargaining salary schedules, and we're asking for approval.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Are there any questions? Okay, this covers
Covers our,
the ESSU is the secretaries, the cafeteria employees, educational assistants, the finance and research development
Yes.
department, classified administrators, the confidential secretaries, and non-bargaining salaries and hourly classified employees.
That is
Covers
correct.
quite a few people.
Yes.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 19 is to consider substitute employee wage scale adoption, and this would be a new wage scale for all substitute employees, and we're asking for consideration for approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar. Second. Second. By Mrs. De Angelis. Are there any questions?
I-
Go ahead.
Okay, how does this affect with our Wren Hill
Well,
agreement? That's what I was trying to figure out.
what it does is it makes the salary schedule, bumps that salary schedule up and makes us more competitive when we're looking for substitutes. We did a study last year with Dr. Selico, and we looked at what our rates were, and our rates were lower than other places in the county. So what we wanted to do was to be able to be competitive. So it does raise that.
But now we have Wren Hill does our day-to-day subs in our buildings. So Wren Hill will be paying these people these rates?
Yes,
And then from there, okay.
yes. That is accurate.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Also handling items 20 and 21. Item 20 is considering an agreement with Carrera Restoration and Construction, and we're asking for approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis.
Just a little background. Carrera is, what they do is they give us coverage for priority when we have emergency situations that occur within our school buildings. For example, I believe the fire in Indian Hills, when we had the leak at the high school, water damage at the high school. And what they are is they are a conduit for us to be able to work through what kinds of support we need to be able to get through those kinds of situations. And so they can also do the work, but we also work through them to give us some consulting and advice about how to proceed.
And they work with our insurance company?
Work with the insurance company to make sure that we're getting the best rates and getting the best service for what we need.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Is this a new contract, or do we use every?
We've been using them,
I don't recall that, but
Mrs. Sewell, members of the board, we have been using these people, I believe, for the last 3 or 4 years.
it just,
Yes.
The contract is new.
The contract is new, but we've been using them before.
okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 21 is to consider approval and ratification of final payment for performance of contract. And I do want to make one correction in this one. It should be for all 4 schools. I think it's listed on, in item 21, it has 2 schools. It's up for all 4 schools, and we're asking for approval.
Okay, thank you.
It's got all 4 on the revision.
Just not,
I don't think we mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting, that there was a revision there. I just
Oh,
wanted to
I'm
mention it. Just wanted to draw everybody's attention to that.
okay, thank you. Mine got buried.
Okay.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Or do you have the, okay.
It was here.
We need a motion
So moved.
moved by Mrs. Sudar,
Second.
second by Mrs. De Angelis. Did you find it?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 22 is a consideration for a grant application, and we're asking for approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis.
2 grants, just a little background, 2 grants that we're asking for consideration here. One is with, as Mr. Vasic pointed out, with the food service, and it is an opportunity for them to be able to assist with licensing and software for the Early Childhood Center. And what that will do is then give us an opportunity to automate our meal service. So that's the one grant. And then we also are asking for a approval of a Shell Science Lab grant. And what will happen with this, and it will go to Central Middle School, it'll give them an opportunity to make over their lab and be able to bring it up to speed with some 21st century support in their laboratory. So 2 pretty significant grants.
Okay, now the food service one is coming from the Ohio Department of Education.
Ohio Department of Education,
And the other one comes from,
from Shell Oil,
okay, we didn't get that one.
Shell Science Lab Challenge Grant is what it is, and it's coming from Shell Oil Company.
Okay. Can you make sure that we get the information on that one? Because we didn't have that in our mailing. Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Well, now, the food service grant one we already received.
Okay.
And then the Shell one is still something we're applying for?
Yes, we haven't received it, we're just applying for it.
Okay. And is that's a competitive grant?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Items number 24, 25, and 26, these are on that,
23.
excuse me, 23, 24, 25, and 26 all have to deal with policy. And item 23 is to consider policy deletions, and this is the first reading. We're deleting 2 policies and renumbering those policies, and we're asking for approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis. Do you want to explain the Neola part of this?
What happens with Neola, which is our company that helps us to write our policy, is that we have to change with the law, and there's been several changes in law, and so what we're also doing is trying to condense and consolidate some of these policies so that they all can be under one category. And so some of these changes that you see are us being able to make sure our policies are all in alignment with the changes in state law.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Who's on the review committee? Is there a board member on the policy review?
We have, well, not a board member, we have our assistant superintendent along with my secretary. They go through along with the treasurer.
They're going, Neola presents them to us.
Yeah, I just remember on our previous revision of the policy, the board was invited to participate. I was wondering if,
Yeah.
what
Not at this time. That was when we were going through each policy by policy. Neola has, in the past, even given us the updates that they want accomplished.
It just seems like this is a significant change in policy.
Yeah, these
There's
are-
a lot of information change.
And most of it is to really be in line with state law.
Oh, I
But
understand.
and they're just, and there are recommendations from them that these are what they would suggest that we do to keep up with that. And so that's the reason why we want to try to get those in so that we can just be in alignment with state law.
Other than the first one, which is the deletions, the rest of them are only first readings, so
Yes.
the board will still
Yeah.
have opportunity to have input. Because there'll be 3 readings on those. But this particular one, because it's a deletion, doesn't require 3 readings.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Again, item 24 is the consideration and adopt policy revisions. And again, this is the first reading, and we're adopting multiple policy revisions to update our district manual, and we're asking for approval.
Is there a motion? So moved. Moved by Mrs. Lysy, second.
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, do we need to separate this out to do them policy by policy, or only when we're making the decision?
Only when you're making a decition. I mean, you can...
When we're discussing them?
Yes.
Okay, is that right for you? For your records, though, I know that sometimes we have to do it individually.
As far as board minutes,
Well, you want to get back to us on that, whether you need it individually or as a group?
Okay. I don't
Okay.
think we need
I know when we
individually.
did it, I know when we did the whole policy, we did it all together.
Yeah, I
so
don't
just
think
wanna
we
make
need to,
sure.
but I'll verify that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think you're right, I just wanted to make sure we're
Gotcha.
sure. Okay, and then we will have a second hearing next week, Monday, when we have our special meeting, and then the final will be at our first meeting in January. Okay, any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And staying with policies, 25 is to consider policy adoptions, again, first reading, and this is the adoption of multiple new policies. And we're asking for approval.
Okay, and is there?
First reading.
Right, first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second by Mrs. De Angelis. Any questions or comments? And these are also suggested by Neola?
Yes.
And by state law?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 26 is to consider the improved implementation of end-of-course exams, and we're asking for approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second. Second. By Mrs. De Angelis.
Just a little background, these are what the board would be approving is not necessarily the individual course exams, just the fact that we have we are meeting SB 5.65, which is that we have end-of-course exams in history, American history, and American government.
Are we going to have, down the road, have to have the end-of-course exams in every subject, or are they using other tests to make that decision?
So right now with PARC, with math and literacy, through the PARC assessments, but as we go through, there could be, I think we're going to look at more end-of-course exams, and I think that as Mr. Smith pointed out, there's multiple changes that are going on, and as they work through all of that, I think that we're going to get to end-of-course exams in a lot of these courses, but right now, through this, we've got to make sure that we've got the American history, and we've got to make sure that American government, that we have those done through state law, but I believe that's what's going to happen.
Okay. I just found it interesting that they didn't include world history in that law, that they would have said that as well.
I have a question. I'm kind of confused with this because we've always had the semester exams in January and the end of the school year exams. So I thought now we're relabeling it and calling it something else and meet the state law. I mean, is it the same test or are we doing different tests? I'm trying to figure out.
It's a different test. I'm going to have Heather talk a little bit about the specifics, but it's a little bit different in the fact that we now have content standards that they have to meet, And so now that there are different standards, the new law requires us to make sure that we're meeting those new standards. So that's what's changed.
You know you have to go up there, yeah.
I have another who's director of curriculum can talk a little bit more specifically about it, but most of it has to deal with the fact that we've had changes in our standards.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Just to clarify, the reason that we have these interim exams is because with the new end-of-course exams that Park and Ohio will be rolling out, they're not operational until next school year. However, for this school year, we are mandated as districts to have an interim exam in these two areas that meet the new standards and also the changes with the legislative documents. So that's why it's for 1 year only, and then starting next year, we'll have the state-adopted exams.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 27 is to consider reimbursement in lieu of transportation, and we're asking for approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis. Any questions or comments?
I have one. I know in the past it used to be approximately $200 when I got it for my son being in private school. What is the amount of money they're getting this year? Or they don't wait till the end of the school year? I mean, I know you don't get the check like until July, but it's like,
You know, I'll have to get back. I'm thinking it's about $220, but we'll have to get back to you on that.
is it per like student divided up by how many students get the transportation reimbursement, or is it by how many students in the
I think
district, but the
it's-
cost per student
I
is
think
the
it's per
transportation?
student.
Cost per student.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 children, it's times 3.
$220 times 3?
It would be for each student. So it would be multiplied by 3 students. And-
For the public who might not understand what we're talking about, there are times we're charged with transporting parochial and charter schools at the same level that we do our own students. So because we don't transport high school, then the high schools don't get transportation. But K through 8, those people are eligible. There are times when it might only be 1 or 2 students going to that school. What the state allows us to do is pay the parents instead of sending a bus out for 1 or 2 students to transport to those schools. And that's what we're talking about. And this has been going on for years and years and years. That's why it's a routine item.
Well, and the other thing, Madam President and members of the board, that's different on this, and you may have seen this, that usually this is a little bit more. When I looked at it a year ago, there were more pages, and the reason why there's less this year is because in the past what we've done is everybody who was eligible was listed, and then if they then applied, we would then go ahead and give them reimbursement. What we're doing now is streamlining that, is we're only, as they give us the information, then we go ahead and put that in for reimbursement. So that's the reason why it looks a little bit different than what it may have in the past. So we won't see every name on it, only the ones that have requested payment and requested consideration for payment.
When is the last day they can ask for payment?
I believe it's February, but I don't know the date. And I do know that in the past has been a soft date. And we've had a little flexibility on that, and so we're trying to streamline that and make sure that we stay hard with our date. And but it's in February. I don't have the exact date.
We can't make it any easier. A letter was mailed out to them, so it wasn't like you had to go chasing for the money.
Right.
The letter's been given to you.
But because it's different, we've done some things a little different. Want to make sure that everybody has a chance to do what they need to do.
And I think in the past, what we did was listed all the schools that were eligible, whereas now we're only listing where they're actually going.
Exactly.
So that makes a difference, too. Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And item number 28 is to accept donations of 100 turkeys from 188 Ohio Comp to be distributed to Euclid organizations, and we also want to accept the donation of coats from our Euclid firefighters, Local 337, that were distributed to Shoreview and Bluestone Elementary, and we're asking for approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar, second.
Second.
By Mrs. De Angelis.
you want to tell us
Sure.
where the turkeys are going to end up?
Yeah, 30 of them we're going to have at the holiday dinner, and they will be, and some of them will be given to families. We won't cook all 30 of them, but we'll have 30 of them that will be available
That's
for
for families of
for
students.
families of students, yes. And then we also have 30 that will be distributed to various churches through our business office. And then we have some turkeys that they're going to, depending on families that are in need, they're going to identify those families and then distribute those turkeys to those families. So they'll all go to good use, and we appreciate that. And also appreciate the firefighters and their support for Bluestone and Shoreview Elementaries. We're going to be recognizing them on the 16th.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Yes.
Mrs. De Angelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, do you have any informal?
I do. First of all, I want to acknowledge and give a shout out to Board Member Donna Sudar. I happened to be at the Saturday Ohio Early Learning Standard workshop that Mrs. Sudar's vision was able to bring to Euclid, and we had just about 90, I think, over 90 people, 90 plus.
About 87.
87 people here, and the significance of that is what it did is allowed us to be able to bring early childhood standards to Euclid to make sure that our early childhood providers had an opportunity to understand what those standards were and have an opportunity to work in a workshop and really understand what was important. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I thought it was very, very well done. Very, very solid workshop, and so Mr. Seward, I just thought that was a great Saturday morning and afternoon. Long day, but I thought that it was very, very, very well done. The other thing, we had last Friday about 37 of our students that were part of the Euclid tree lighting. They volunteered and were very, very helpful, and I think it's the first time that we've had students that have been a part of that and volunteered, so I just wanted to acknowledge our students that came out and did a really nice job with that. And then, thirdly, our very own Heather Miller was a part of an article that was in the News Herald, and the article is Training for the Future, Northeast Ohio Schools Learn to Use Technology to Teach with Videos, and it's from Sunday, December 8th, and she has a couple of quotes in there, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that, and very, very well done, and really talks about our use of technology and how we're using Chromebooks to be able to enhance instruction in the building. So, good job, Heather. And Madam President, that concludes my informal.
Okay, thank you. At this time, do we have any communications or petitions?
We do not.
Any new or old business?
We do not.
Okay, I have just one item of new business because I just got the call today. But you know we have the vacant property out in Madison that we used to use for our students, and we no longer have that in the curriculum. We need to do some research because the Madison schools would like to consider using that property, and it would be to help the students who have special needs get experience in the outdoors. I know from history that it was willed to us, and then if we don't use it, it was to go to the Boy Scouts, and in the past we've asked the Boy Scouts if they wanted the property and they said no. There's only one building on it that's not in very good shape anymore, and Madison is aware of that. They did say, I asked if maybe we could cooperate with them and do some joint ventures with our special ed students going out there if we can, and so he said, of course. And what we need to do at this point, first of all, the board needs to consider this, how you want to go forward. There are some options, but we do need to see if we can find out if there are any heirs left to the estate. And if there are any heirs, we need to contact them and see if they have objections to us going to court and getting that deed restriction lifted. And then at that time, it takes time for this all to happen, and we can look at possibly doing a lease to them at an insignificant amount. They would like to do this for the spring. The gentleman I talked to is actually their football coach who is doing this program, but he talked to with his superintendent, and his superintendent some years ago talked with Ken Clickinger about this whole fact that we have this property out there that we're not using. So, Dulcie, I gave you the instruction. What we need to do is to find out about the heirs and that. And then we can move on to whether or not we want to sell the property to them or keep it and lease it to them or whatever we want to do.
How much property is it? Do you know?
No. I know my kids were out there, but you have to figure that if my kids were out there in elementary school, it was in the 80s. So I don't think it's been used past about 1990, to be honest with you. I don't know how much property.
This is the first I even heard of the property, so.
Yeah, well, that's just it. If you didn't have kids prior to that were in elementary school prior to 1990, you probably aren't aware that we even have that property. And like I said, it was willed to us, so it was something that we weren't expecting, and we did make use of it for a number of years. But I don't know, Mr. Smith, did you get to go out to that property when we?
No.
No, okay. So sometime in between when he was in elementary school and when my kids were, we used it. But I do know that once before we looked into selling the property and we were told we couldn't because of the deed restrictions. So we need to move on and see if we can get the deed restrictions lifted. Okay? Okay, any board members informal? Anyone other than I hope everyone has a safe holiday season. And we still have one more meeting, but for those of you who are here tonight, I hope that you have a nice vacation and come back fully energized. Wait, I'll get to you. So are there any other board members' comments? No? Okay, this time, visitor comments.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Up to the podium.
And sorry to jump the gun. My name is Mitchell Tannetti. I'm president of the Euclid Classification Association. The main reason why I'm here is to recommend a closed session meeting with the board. Give you a few facts and a short timeline. We actually were the first group to start negotiating with management, and now we are the only group that still hasn't resolved our contract yet. It's all due to language. We give concessions down to everything the board was requesting per one request. And Article 6, page 18 and letter B, it's the bargaining unit work. It's all pertains to management's changed the language around to be able to privatize any group under our organization at will. And we're requesting them not to do that. And because we came down on financial coming on a certain day, I mean, there's a longer timeline we could discuss at the meeting that I'm requesting. We had 2 sidebar meetings with 5 people present, Mr. Bell being one of them. At that time, he mentioned to us that it was the board's decision for this language to be in or not for our contract. Now, I understand legally we do not discuss our negotiation. We're working out a contract with the board, and that's not what I'm requesting. But it's my understanding that legally we can request the board to take that language out, and that is allowed to do. So I checked my parameters legally if I can approach you not doing this, and that is a possibility in what I'm attempting to do. Mr. Bell also gave his support, it seemed like at the time, to help set up a meeting with you, which at that time brings me to my timeline. On November 18th, we had a meeting set, which was your work session. But last minute, about 5:30, we were contacted saying that you were too full with your day and you couldn't get us in. I understand. So then we were setting up a meeting for November 25th, which was your last board meeting. To then be notified that you were too full that night and you could have fit us in. So then we were going back and forth with emails with Ms. Van Ho, which then let us know you guys had a meeting and said you wouldn't meet with us, that we needed to meet with the bargaining group we were meeting with, and we had to do it through written to you guys. Well, I mean, everything is promoted to us that it's up to you, the board, to decide if this stays in bargaining or if you guys want to take it out. Again, I'm requesting a closed session so I can explain to you the longer timeline of what we've been through. A lot of cons, a lot of negativity, what would happen if privatizing. Because it was mentioned to our employees already per few management that custodians and cleaners were going to be affected immediately. So it's a big concern to us. And all we're requesting is to keep our CCL, current contract language, for that group. I mean, we came down on everything else, and I'm just requesting a closed session so we can discuss this further. That's all.
I just want to clarify one thing when you talk about the November 18th meeting.
Yeah.
I think that was the date that we had a work session.
Yes.
I did not receive your request until that day, and I sent back the response immediately when I received the email.
Well, from my
So
understanding,
it was way before 5:30, if that's not when you
Well,
were
we were
notified.
contacted. Oh, that's when I was.
I just want you to
my
understand,
phone
but we
call.
already had a very full
Okay.
agenda,
Well, from
and
my understanding, my calendar was set 2 weeks ahead of that time for that meeting.
we did not get that information
Okay.
ahead of time.
All right, I understand.
Okay? They might have intended to, but it was never set with us.
Okay,
All right, we will take that under consideration.
thank you.
Any other visitor comments? Okay, at this time, the board will be going into executive session for the purpose of evaluation of the superintendent. We also have, as the teachers know, they have new evaluation systems, and the principals do. We also have a new one for the superintendent, so it's taking us some time to get through everything. And so I need a motion, but we will not take any action after our executive session, so you're free to go with, and knowing that nothing will happen. And I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of evaluating the superintendent.
Moved by Mrs. Sudar,
Second.
second by Mrs. DeAngelis. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Van Ho.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much for attending tonight.